Hello, class. Today we're going to cover Math 131, Objective 8. And this is about how to multiply and divide polynomials by a monomial, okay? So for part one, we're going to look at how to multiply polynomials, all right? And this has like a couple of different components, different, ways it will look and so forth. So first we're going to start with something kind of simple. And this is when we have um, just like negative 3x squared times a polynomial. Okay. So we got a monomial multiplied by a trinomial. Okay. So when we have a problem like this, what we want to do, this monomial in the front, we want to multiply it by each term inside of the trinomial, okay? So negative 3x squared times 2x squared, and we want to remember our rules, all right? It's going to be negative 6x to the fourth. We will add those exponents. So we still need to remember all of our rules. Then we need to do negative 3x squared times negative 5x, and that is going to be positive 15x cubed. Then we have negative 3x squared times 3, which is going to be negative 9x squared, okay? We want to look and make sure that we don't have any like terms that can be combined. And we want to make sure that it's in descending order. And when that is all in place, this will be the final answer, okay? Another way that you may see a problem like this, you may have 5x times 3x minus 6 plus 3 times 4x minus 2. In this situation, the 5x, we will need to multiply it by those two, and the 3, we will need to multiply it by those two, all right? And when we're done, we should have 4 terms in all. So 5x times 3x is going to be 15x squared. 5x times negative 6 is going to be negative 30x. 3 times 4x is going to be plus 12x. And 3 times negative 2 is going to be minus 6. All right. When we have these 4 terms laid out, we're going to look and see if we have any like terms that we can combine. And then we're going to make sure it's in descending order. So this negative 30x and this positive 12x, those terms are alike, so we can combine them. And we will have 15x squared minus 18x minus 6. That will be our final answer. Okay? So these are, a little kind of simple where we have that one in front that we need to distribute or multiply through. Now let's look at something a little bit more complicated. So for example, 3, we have 2x squared minus 3x times 2 minus x times 4x plus 1 plus 2. All right, we got a lot going on. So when we have parentheses and brackets, we need to work inside of the brackets. We want to work it from the inside out. So this negative x, we need to multiply that through first, okay? So everything else, we're just gonna bring down up until that negative x, okay? Now we need to do negative x times 4x. It's gonna be negative 4x squared, negative 4 times negative x, negative x times 1 is going to be negative x. And then we're going to bring down that plus 2. Okay. So now we're still looking inside of these brackets. Okay. We need to simplify this and get it in descending order. If possible, that can, possibly make things easier for us. All right. So inside of our brackets, what we have that's alike is this 2 and this 2. So, and if we put it in descending order, we'll have negative 4x squared minus x plus 4. Okay. Now that inside of the brackets is simplified, is, nothing else that needs to be combined, is in descending order. Now we can look at this negative 3x and distribute or multiply that through. So we're going to bring down the 2x squared. And then we have negative 3x times negative 4x squared. That is going to be positive 12x cubed. Then we have negative 3x times negative x. That's going to be positive 3x squared. Then we have negative 3x times positive 4, which is going to be negative 12x. Okay. Now at this point, we need to look again, see what we can combine, and then we need to put our final answer in descending order. Okay. So the 12x cubed is going to go first. The two terms that have the x squared, we can combine those, and that will go next. And then our term that just has x, that will go last. So our final answer will be 12x cubed plus 5x minus, no, 12x cubed plus 5x squared minus 12x. Okay, it's a lot of x's and squares and cubes, okay? So that is how we do example 3. Okay. Now let's look at example 4. You all have seen a problem like this before. We call this the FOIL method, and we call it that, the FOIL, because it is first, outer, inner, and last. Okay, it may help you to remember all that. All right. If not, you need to remember that this first term, you're going to multiply it by both those. And this second term, you're going to multiply it by both of those. Okay. So 3x times 2x, that's going to give us 6x squared. 3x times 5 is going to give us plus 15x. Then we have to do negative 2 times 2x. That's going to be negative 4x. And then negative 2 times 5 is going to be negative 10. All right. We need to look and see what we can combine, and go ahead and combine it. And then that will be our final answer. Okay. Now it's a Another way that you could see a problem like this, for example 5, we're going to look at 2x squared minus 5x plus 1 times 3x plus 2. All right. So now we have a trinomial being multiplied by a binomial, which means we have 3 terms being multiplied by 2 terms. Okay. So in the same way we did the FOIL, I would recommend to take the one with the 2 terms and then multiply the bigger polynomial by the smaller polynomial per se. So I would take the 3x and multiply it by everything in here. And then I'll take the 2 and multiply it by everything in here. Okay? So 3 times 2x squared minus 5x plus 1, it is going to give us 6x cubed minus 15x squared plus 3x. When we multiply 2 by everything, we will get 4x squared minus 10x plus 2. All right. Now we have something that looks like what we talked about in Objective 7 when we were adding polynomials, okay? Which, since we are just adding, it's basically like we are combining like terms, okay? So we want to find everything that has x cubed. We only got one thing that has that. Everything that has x squared, that's going to give us negative 11x squared. Everything that has an x, that is going to give us negative 7x. And then we have only one constant term, so we can just bring that on down, okay? And this will be our final answer. 6x cubed minus 11x squared minus 7x plus 2, okay? And we have, let's see, 2 more situations. 2 more that we need to talk about. So for example, 6, we can possibly have a problem like this. Where we have 3 polynomials being multiplied together, okay? The way to do this is to focus on the first 2, get that multiplied together first. If we multiply those, we'll get this. And then we will multiply it by that last one, which would be the problem that we just looked at. And we can do the x times everything and the 2 times everything. And we'll get x cubed minus x squared minus 12x. And we'll get plus 2x squared minus 2x minus 24, okay? From here, we can combine the like terms. And that will get us to our final answer, okay? So not too bad. We're just doing the same thing over and over again. The problems just kind of look a little different, okay? And for the last one under this category, if we have multiple variables, okay? So with this one, the way it's set up, we could do FOIL. So 5a times 2a plus 5a times 7b. Then we got plus negative 3b times 2a plus negative 3b times 7b, okay? So 5a times 2a is going to be 10a squared. 7a times 7b is going to be 35ab. We typically list the variables in the order that they appear in the alphabet. So like ABC, or XYZ, like that. For this one, we got negative 3b times 2a. That will be negative 6ab. Again, we'll, put it in that alphabetical order. And then the last one is negative 3b times 7b, which would be negative 21b squared, okay? So the two in the middle are like terms and can combine to be 29. So our final answer is going to be 10a squared plus 29ab minus 29b squared. Okay. So those are the basics on just multiplying polynomials. Okay. Next, we're going to look at some kind of special cases, some special situations. And that is when we have the product of the sum and difference of two terms, and we have the square of a binomial, okay? So with the product and sum of difference of two terms, that's basically if we have a plus b times a minus b, okay? And of course, if we did the FOIL method and we did a times a, we'll get a squared. A times negative b, we'll get negative ab. B times a, we'll get ab. And b times negative b, we'll get negative b squared, right? And then when we combine those like terms, we'll be left with a squared minus b squared. And so this can be a shortcut for us. We can just jump to the end and have the square of the first term and then the square of the second term, okay? The other shortcut that we can do is when we have the square of a binomial. If we have a plus b squared, we know that a plus b squared is the same thing as a plus b times a plus b. If we FOIL that out, we will get a squared plus ab plus ab plus b squared. And when we combine those like terms in the middle, we'll have a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And so as a shortcut, we can just square the first term, do twice the product of the two terms, and then square the second term, okay? So let's try to use those shortcuts to see how they work. Again, You don't necessarily have to use these shortcuts. These are an option if you want to just do the FOIL and be on the safe side to make sure that you get it right every time. If you feel like when you try to do it this way, you don't get it right, but if you just follow the full steps, you get it right every time, by all means, keep doing the FOIL, okay? So for example 1, we're going to do the product of the sum and difference of two terms. So we have 4x plus 3 and 4x minus 3, okay? So we want to look at that first and second term. So when we do this method, this is what we're trying to figure out. The square of the first term and then the square of the second term. So we got 4x, that's our first term, and 3 is our second term, okay? So when we work this out, we'll get 16x squared minus 9, okay? And this is, again, using the shortcut. For example 2, that first term is 5x, so we need 5x squared minus the second term squared, which is y, okay? So 5x squared is going to be 25x squared, and y squared, of course, it's just going to be y squared. And so that would be the answer for that one. For example 3, we got 3x and 7. 3x and 7. So that's what we want to plug in, all right? 3x squared is going to be 9x squared, and then 7 squared is 49, okay? So when you do this shortcut, it's really easy, okay? You just have to remember it, of course, but it's once you remember it, it kind of makes it go by a little faster. So for this one, the first term is 2ab, and the second term is 7. So 2ab squared is going to be 4a squared b squared, and 7 squared is 49, okay? And for all of these problems, pay attention to the fact that that negative sign stays in the middle, okay? Now let's look at our second shortcut, okay? When we square a binomial. When we square a binomial, okay? So when we square a binomial, if we follow the shortcut, okay, we're going to have that first term squared. Then we're going to have 2 times those, the two terms. And then we're going to have that last term squared. Okay, so this will be your kind of, formula that you would use to plug in every time. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that. And these are the things that you need to remember. Of course, while you are working your homework, you will hopefully be using your notes as a guide so that you can get your homework problems correct, okay? So we have our little template, okay? So for example 1, our first term is 2x. And the last term is negative 3y. Now with this one, if that second term is negative, we keep that negative sign with it, okay? With the shortcut that we just did, the negative sign stays the whole time, okay? So that's one of the differences in the shortcuts. And then we put the two terms in the middle, okay? So when we multiply this out, the 2x squared is going to be 4x squared. This middle, the 2 times 2x times negative 3y is going to be negative 12xy. And then the negative 3y squared is going to be positive 9 squared. And that's going to be the final answer, okay? Let's look at example 2. That first term is 2x, and that second term is 7y. So 2x squared is going to be 4x squared. In the middle, we got 2 times 2x times 7y. That is going to be 28xy. And 7y squared is going to be 49y squared, okay? So the more you do these, you will get the hang of it, all right? Of course, you need to remember the formula as to what you are plugging in. And then you want to plug it in, and then you have to make sure that you work it out properly, okay? So for example 3, I plugged in the 3x and the negative 4y. So 3x squared is 9x squared. 2 times 3x times negative 4y is going to give me negative 24xy. And negative 4y squared is going to be plus 16y squared, okay? And let me write that a little bit better. XY, okay? And that is our final answer. For example 4, for this one, our first term, we're plugging in 3a squared, okay? So 3a squared is 9a to the 4th. Remember our rules, okay? When we have an exponent to an exponent, we multiply those, all right? Then in the middle, we have 2 times 3a squared times negative b. And that is going to be negative 6a squared b. And then we have negative b squared. That is going to be positive b squared. And that is the final answer. Okay? So that completes the multiplication part. All right. Next, in part 2, now we need to talk about how to divide polynomials, okay? And for the logic behind this, I'm gonna use something that we're all familiar with. I'm just gonna use regular numbers. So let's say we had 6 plus 4 over 2, okay? Now we can simplify this to get 10 over 2, which is going to equal 5, right? But let's say that we couldn't simplify. Let's say that we couldn't combine the 6 plus the 4. So how else could we figure this out? Okay. We can break this up, this 6 plus 4, and we can divide both of those by 2. All right. If we do that, 6 divided by 2 is going to be 3. And 4 divided by 2 is going to be 2. And we're still going to get 5. Okay. So because this is true, this is why we are able to divide, and how we need to kind of think about it when we divide a polynomial by a monomial. Okay. So for our first example, well, let's say we had 6x squared plus 4x over 2x. Okay. And the reason why we needed this basic information, because in example 1, the 6x squared and the 4x are not like terms, so we can't just combine them to get 10. So in this case, we need to break it up. We need to do 6x squared over 2x plus 4x over 2x. Okay. Now we can divide it using the rules that we talked about. Everything is going to go back to those rules. Okay. So 6 over 2 is going to be 3. And x squared over x, if we subtract the exponents, we could do 2 minus 1 to get x. Or we can think about it like how many x's we can get rid of from the top and the bottom, and we can get rid of 1, and it'll leave 1x in the top. For the 4x over 2x, x over x is going to cancel out, and 4 over 2 is just going to be 2. Okay? And so that is that answer in its simplest form. If you feel like this is not right, or if you want to check your answer, the way to check it is to do 2x times 3x plus 2. All right. When you multiply that through, you're going to get the 6x squared plus 4x back. Okay. And that's a way that you can check these problems. Okay. So let's look at some more examples. All right. Example 2. We got 16x to the 5th over 8x cubed plus 4x over 2x. Okay. So what we're going to have to do, and this is my recommendation, is to write out the top exactly how you see it, and then divide everything by that monomial. Okay. So with the x's, we got an x over here. We got 3x's over 1. So if we get rid of that one, it'll be 2 left. And if we get rid of 1 off the top and the bottom, it'll be 4 left in the top. And then the 16 over 2 is just going to be 8. The negative 8 over 2 is going to be negative 4. And the 4 over 2 is going to be 2. Okay. Quick and easy. All right. Let's look at this one. We got 4x cubed y plus 8x squared y squared minus 4xy cubed all over 2xy. So we're going to rewrite the top. just how we see it. And then we're going to take each term and divide it by that monomial in the denominator. Okay. If we look at the exponents, here we got an x over x that's going to cancel. Here we got a y over y that's going to cancel. And let me use a different color. So that x over x and y over y is going to cancel. Here we got a y. If we get rid of a y on the top and bottom, that's going to become a 2. The same for this middle term. If we get rid of an x and a y from the top and the bottom, it's going to be just 1. And for this one, if we get rid of an x in the top and the bottom, it's going to be 2. So this is an easy way to think about this. Of course, you can subtract the exponents if that way is easier for you, or you can think about it like this, which is kind of more of like a logical way of thinking about it. So now we have to do 4 over 2, which is going to be 2. Then we have that x squared. Then we have 8 over 2, which is going to be plus 4. We have an x and a y left. And then we have minus 4 over 2, which is going to be negative 2. And we have a y squared left. Okay? And that is how you do that one. Okay? So that is how it will look for example 2. You see we have the same variable, which is x. And for example 3, we have 2 variables present, a x and a y. Okay? Let's do one more example. This is another way that you can see the problem written. It could be written like this: 21 a to the 9th minus 7 a to the 8th plus 35a squared divided by 7a to the 6th. Okay, it could be written like this. And so you have to know that you are being asked to divide, to do what we just did. Write all this out and then divide each one of them by 7a to the 6th. Okay? And again, we want to follow our rules. Okay? So let's look at this first one. And let's do red this time. So we got 21 over 7. 21 over 7 is going to be 3. Then we have a to the 9th over a to the 6th. We can subtract those exponents and get a cubed, okay? Or you can think about if we get rid of 6 from the top and the bottom, we'll have 3 left in the top. For the next one, we got negative 7 over 7. That's going to be 1. Then we have 8a over, well, we have a to the 8th over a to the 6th. So you could either think about it like a to the 8 minus 6 and get your minus a squared like that. Or you can think about it like we can get rid of 6 a's off of the top and the bottom, and it's just going to leave us with 2 in the top. okay? So two different ways to think about it. Both are correct. Then for the third one, we have 35 over 7, all right, which is going to be 5. And then with our A's, we could do a to the 2 minus 6, which is going to be a to the negative 4. And of course, according to our rules, that will be 1 over a to the 4th, okay? Or you can think about it in a more logical way and say, if I get rid of 2 A's from the top and the bottom, I'm going to have 4 A's left in the bottom, okay? And so it'd be a to the 4th. So this will be our final answer, okay? So that is how we do objective 8. That is how we multiply and divide polynomials for math 131.